What's up, guys? All right, we are going to jump straight into it today. This was an unscheduled, unplanned stream, obviously. Just realized the camera's down a little bit. And I saw the balance patch post notes come up in Discord, and I just thought I would take a look at it. And let's see. Actually, it looks like we're on the alt side, but it doesn't really matter. We are going to look at the balance patch. We're going to give our thoughts. Now, probably won't be able to keep up with chat a lot. I know I'm going to get a fair amount of questions about Siege Finals today. I will just say that it sucked. It's kind of raw. It really did hurt, man. It really did hurt. And it is what it is, but SSA completely deserved the win, man. They came up with just an amazing 4-star defense. They had a great map, man. They had a great map. It was legit. It hurt. And that's probably it. A lot of you guys are going to be spamming different things in chat, which is awesome. You know, I mean, I say that it comes out wrong. I really appreciate when people are active in chat. But today I'm probably not going to be watching chat as much because I don't want to see the buffs that are coming up. I want to give my real reaction. So with that, let's jump straight into it. I really hope that the first thing I see is a Douglas nerf, or pretty much this entire balance patch is going to suck. Okay, it's a Douglas nerf. Now, this screen is actually too small for me to read, so I'm going to have to open it up in the other window. I'm going to have to open this up in the other window so that I can read it on my PC, because if I zoom out on the screen right here, it's going to be too big on... Like if I make my window larger here, this is what it looks like for you guys. Like it gets too big. So let me just open this up in my browser. I do see they did something to Douglas, which is a huge start. It looks like they didn't reduce his speed lead unless that's further down, but at least they did something. I keep saying Douglas. Oliver. Obviously, I mean Oliver. It's 1:20 a.m. It's 1:20 a.m., guys. So if I misspeak some monsters, that's just to be expected. All right, let's see. Where it should be under the announcements section. So mods, polls, chats. No. Why am I? Oh, I had to scroll up. Okay, here we go. Summoners War announcements, balance patch notes. All right, let's see here. So, first up, we have got Oliver. Changes from reduces enemy attack bar by 100% to reduces enemy's attack bar to 0 and increases your attack bar in proportion to the reduced attack bar. What's interesting is that's exactly what I was calling for 2 seasons ago. That was like literally my suggestion 2 seasons ago. So that's kind of cool. I don't know if I honestly still feel like that was the exact thing that he needed, but I'll take it, man. Even if they nerf him out of the meta, because that's a pretty strong nerf. That's a pretty strong nerf to Oliver. But even if they nerf him out of the meta, it's fine. I've had enough Oliver. Legit, I've had enough Oliver. I'm good with it. I am happy. So now we can move on to the rest of the balance patch. Monkey off the back. So, Dark Bison. Your HP recovers by 20%. When getting attacked has been removed. You know what? I thought he was going to be hard to balance. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. They nailed that one. I think they nailed that one. And honestly, like, I wasn't sure exactly how you would balance him, but I gotta say, I think they nailed that one. That's really good. We're 2 for 2. Come to us. You have never started 2 for 2 with me on a balance patch before. Is it going to get better from here? I hope so. All right. Veronica, nerf. Removes all beneficial effects to removes 1 beneficial effect on all enemies. That is not a nerf. Come to us. You are 2 for 3. That makes absolutely no freaking difference to her whatsoever. I guess in theory, if you run a Miles on shield, maybe that creates a slight counter to Veronica, but that's not what she needed. That's not an accurate. Yeah, see, I see. Fallis said it, but honestly, Veronica does enough damage that she's gonna break the shields. So I don't think it'll make a difference unless you're running like 4 shield sets or 5 shield sets. Doesn't make a difference. That's totally irrelevant. It was a waste of space on the text on the page. Okay, Lume, nerf, light dragon attack. Each attack absorbs the enemy's attack bar by 25% to 20%. This was unnecessary. This was unnecessary. Lume is kind of necessary for siege defense. Now, David, Veronica's actually, she is a little bit too strong. She's got a season and a half in RTA at like a 55% win rate, and all you had to do was read her kit when she came into the game to know she was busted. So she definitely did need a nerf. They didn't actually nerf her though. Literally, the change they made to her is no change. It's like text on a page, but it changes nothing. Stefano just said they nerfed Nana again. That's effing ridiculous, man. If they actually nerf Nana again, that's effing ridiculous. All right, but we'll get there. We'll get there. That's why I said I'm trying not to read further ahead. All right, let's see. So, Lume nerf. This was unnecessary. This was totally unnecessary. Lume is needed for Siege, but it's not a major nerf. In this case, it is a 20% reduction from Lume's like attack bar absorb, but I don't think it actually changes much. And normally when they do 20% changes, I always tell people like they're underestimating. I always tell people that they're underestimating the power of like a 20% change, but in this case, it's not really a 20% change because it's all about cycling, and as long as she cycles in front of you, then she's taking another turn anyway. So I don't think this is super impactful. I don't think. We'll see. Nana nerf. Revives the ally from 25% to 20% HP. This is just stupid. Like straight up just stupid, unnecessary, and wrong. If I can put that in any more direct terms, I will, but Nana had already been over-nerfed. Nana's win rate is through the roof in RTA, which is why they actually nerfed her, but they nerfed her completely out of usefulness in Siege already, and they just keep nerfing the revive rate. They don't understand Nana. They don't understand what makes her strong. So if they really did want to nerf her, bring the revive rate back up to 40-50%, and change her skill 2 from an AoE to a single target, or there's a lot of different things you can do. The one that I'm in favor of, honestly, and the one I think would bring Nana balance, is that she can't gain an orb until she's taken a turn. So I would actually like to see them bring the Nana revive back up to about 40%, but make it so that she cannot get a second orb until she's taken a turn. Because the reason Nana's win rate is high is not specifically because of Nana, it's because of the monsters that she's played with. Anyway, I'll digress from there, but I'll just say that this is wrong. Com2Us completely missed the mark on this one. Nana did not need a nerf. She actually, that revive HP, they're going to nerf her out of use. They're going to nerf her out of the game, man. It's just unnecessary. Okay. All right, next up, Light Mage. Time of Destruction. So this is Dorothy, I believe her name is. Dorothy deals additional damage in proportion to the destroyed HP. Now deals additional damage in proportion to the target's total amount of destroyed HP after destroying the HP, and increases damage by 13%. So I don't have Dorothy. I know a couple of people who do. They're not fans of her. I don't know if this is enough to make her good or not. She's obviously just a nuker. When I say just, I mean that's like her purpose is to nuke, right? AoE nuke. So I don't know if this is enough to fix her because I don't have experience with her, but at least they've noticed that she's a bad LD5, and they are starting to move her in the right direction. So that's a positive. That's a positive. It's going to be hard for me to get like that bitter taste out of my mouth because the Nana nerf is just stupid and the Lume nerf was unnecessary, and Veronica didn't actually get a nerf. But I want to go back to those top two lines and say that they actually did nerf Oliver. I feel like it's not the right nerf, but they did nerf Oliver, and they actually nailed it with the Gurkha. I think they nailed it spot on with the Gurkha. All right, Wind and Dark if... Oh, no, I skipped a couple here. So, Chung Peng, Water Art Master. When enemies remove harmful effects, the attack bar of allies will be increased by 25%. When enemies or allies remove harmful effects, the attack bar of all allies will be increased by 15%. By the way, good morning, Scrooge. How you doing? And for those of you who are just joining, guys, I'll be a little less engaged with chat than I normally am because I'm trying not to read too many spoilers, so I apologize if I miss anybody, but how are you guys all doing? I hope everybody's doing well. And Stefano, yeah, I just meant Oliver. I know I said Douglas a bunch of times. I definitely meant Oliver, yeah. All right, so Chung Peng, whenever there's a heal, now it's whenever there's a cleanse on either side, it goes to 15%. I will say that that is a net buff for his kit. But it's a very, very small one. Am I saying Chung? Hey gang, I'm sorry guys. It's 1:30 a.m. I'm gonna make mistakes here. I know I'm gonna make mistakes here. Hey gang, obviously hey gang, Water Art Master. Water Art Master. I will say that that is a very mild buff, but it's not how he's played. That's the thing, is it's not how he's played in teams with like lots of cleansers. I mean, I guess with Riley, like there's sometimes that Heigang is played with Riley, that makes sense, but there's a lot of other times where he's not going to be played with Riley. I don't know. I think 15% is too low. If it was 20%, I would be happy with this. 15% feels kind of low. I feel like on net, he's going to give less attack bar total throughout all fights total than he used to. Like, on net, I feel like he's going to give less attack bar than he used to. It's technically a buff, but because of how he's used, I feel like it's actually a very teeny tiny nerf. I don't know. I'm neutral. We'll have to see how we'll have to see how he's played, though. You know, he could wind up fitting into more comps than he used to now. Maybe he'll make a little bit more sense in, like, some bruiser comps. I don't know. It's one of those I've got to see in the game. I'm not excited about it, but maybe I'm not thinking far enough ahead. Maybe there's more to it. Alright, so Dark Art Master. Mookwall grants immunity on all allies for 3 turns. Mookwall needed a buff. I don't think this is the buff he needed. But I tend to say that with every single balance patch. He's got a 116 base. You run Mookwall in cleaves. Why do you need a 3-turn immunity in a cleave? I mean, come to us. Understand your monsters, bro. Steven, the Oliver nerf. So right now, the reason Oliver can take like 10 turns in a row is because he absorbs, air quotes, absorbs 100% attack bar from monsters over and over and over, even when those monsters have 0. Now he will just absorb their actual attack bar. So, or well, it says he'll increase his attack bar in proportion to the reduced attack bar. So he basically just absorbs the actual attack bar, which means he can't take 8 turns in a row anymore, stuff like that. Yeah, Varmo, I get that, so you can't get CC if you miss a strip, but the point is when you're playing all 300 Swift monsters, your monsters are paper thin. Immunity is not the buff you need. I mean, you've got Mookwall, so I'm advocating for you. I think this is the wrong buff because I think he needed something that plays better into his kit and synergizes more with a monster that's built paper thin at 300 speed. I don't see where the 3 turns is going to make that much of a difference. It's the wrong buff. Alright, Wind Dark Ifrit. Stun rate moves up to 40%. Totally irrelevant for the Wind Ifrit because it still sucks. Actually a nice little buff for Veramos because Veramos is very underrated, and I think this does make Veramos just slightly better. I think that's a great change for Veramos, depending on what this next thing we see coming up right here. So Veramos, Dark Ifrit. Removes harmful effect after taking damage from... Removes harmful effects after taking damage from continuous damage or bomb to before taking damage. That's actually really big because it means you may not necessarily get to dot him out unless there's a ton of dots. And your attack bar increases by 15% per harmful effect on the ally when attacking. This is legit. This is legit. This is actually really good. I like this because Veramos was a monster that was actually kind of underrated and was already kind of good, but not quite great, and it is like the first monster that they encourage everybody to fuse at the start of the game. This actually is enough, I think, to make Veramos legitimately good. This makes Veramos legitimately good. I really like this. This is solid. Okay, Water and Light Ryu. Going back, let's see, absorbs the all randomly. Ooh. Oh, that's too freaking strong, man. Rather than nerfing, so I haven't even gone down, they didn't nerf Wind Robo. I can tell that already because rather than nerfing Wind Robo, they just made Water Ryu better than Wind Robo. That's way too freaking strong. Dude, that is way too freaking strong. Alright, so Water Light Ryu absorbs attack bar of all enemies. Now can be up to 20%, so we'll just assume it's an average of 15%. Basically the same thing as Okay. I'll finish my sentence here. So it's basically the same thing as the Robos now. He's going to average 15% absorb. Perk with the super chat asks if I go down. Perk, the answer to that would be yes, but probably not in the way that you were inferring, but in other ways. Anyway, Perk, thank you very much for the super chat. I appreciate it, bro. All right, let's see. Fire Ken, same buff as... Well, Fire Ken. Ken is only fire, right? So Ken gets the same buff as Light Ryu and Water Ryu. And so does Shadow Claw because it's the same monster. Light Ryu, 9% increase to damage. 9% increase to damage and increases critical rate for 2 turns before attacking. That is huge. That is huge. Light Ryu, I mean, he's still just a cleave monster, right? He still has limited usage. When I say just, that's not a bad thing. I don't mean that as a bad thing. I mean that that's like his usage. He's going to strip into really big damage on cleaves, but he now is going to turn cycle like crazy. He's going to crit buff, and he's going to get massive damage boosts. I think Light Ryu is here, guys. For those of you who have a Light Ryu, I don't think Vlad's on stream, but for those of you who have a Light Ryu is here, man. Light Ryu is legit now. Light Ryu is real. Perk with the super chat says you are what you eat. Oh, thank you very much, Perk. I will take that. I'll take it, man. I'll take it. Perk, thank you very much for the super chat, bro. I appreciate it, man. Strong dose. Yes, I agree with you, man. I think Light Ryu is legit now, man. I honestly think Light Ryu is legit. Again, still just. When I say just a buffer, I only mean that he's not going to be played in a wide variety of comps. He's going to be played in a limited variety of comps. But in those comps that he's going to be played in, he is going to be freaking strong. Like, he is going to be really, really strong. So, Jamie, it's not just 9%, or Jaime probably, I'm sorry. It's not going to be just 9% damage, though, because he's going to get a self-crit buff. So that means that you can now rune him with 30 less crit rate. That's 5 less rolls of crit rate, which really is 6 less rolls on average. So that's 6 extra rolls of attack. So you're not just getting a 9% damage, you're also going to be able to build him with about 42% more attack at the same speeds that you were building him before and maintain your 100 crit rate. That's a lot more than 9% damage. The 9% multiplies on top of that 42%. It's huge. And then on top of that, the fact that he's actually going to be cycling with about 15% absorb per hit off his skill 2 instead of 10, that also means a lot. Look at how OP the Robos are with that cycle. So Light Ryu is now going to be able to cycle completely in front of a team. He can act as your stripper and your nuker, which he could not do before. He can actually strip the entire team, let a defense breaker go, and still take his nuke turn before the opponent's move. That's actually really huge. Alright, let's see. Dark Shadowcaster. They reduced his cooldown, but I gotta be honest, I don't know what he does. I don't know what he does well enough. It's nice that they buffed him, but I can't have an opinion because I have no idea why he sucked. I just know that he did. I can't have an opinion, unfortunately. Dark Monkey King added effect to Stone Monkey passive. No, sorry. That's Zing Zay. Sorry, Wind Monkey King. Read that wrong. Wind Monkey King added effect to Stone passive. Increases harmful effect activation rate by 50% when counterattacking with the passive skill. Does not apply to Revenge Rune set effect. So he now has I think that's 100%. I think that's 100% stun. That's legit. That's legit. That officially ends Oliver. That should be the official end of the Oliver era, guys. Between the Oliver nerf, which was actually a little bit more than I expected, and I'm fine with it because I was tired of Oliver. So I'm fine with them over-nerfing Oliver, but it was too much. It was too much. And then this Zing Zay guaranteed stun. Dude, that's busted. That is busted. Zing Zay also now has a Gyu counter. Xingze is back, man. That's huge because Xingze was like fringe on the meta already. He still wasn't bad. His win rate's been dropping the last few seasons. He's down like 47% win rate in RTA right now. But when he gets going, he gets going, and this is big, man. This is big. So that's a big buff to Xingze. I like that one. I'm happy with that one. All right, Josephine, Justice Strike now always lands as a critical hit. That's also pretty insane. That is also pretty insane because Josephine's one big limitation is that she's really rune hungry, really stat hungry. Now that you don't have to rune her with, first of all, Josephine now obviously counters Douglas. Excuse me, Josephine now counters Douglas. Because she's got the guaranteed crit. She also counters Kinky. Remember the Kinky nerf guys? So guaranteed crits. Josephine now counters Kinky. But more importantly is she doesn't need crit rate anymore. So, I mean, wait, is Justice Strike her skill 2 or her skill 1? Maybe I'm wrong. I was thinking that was her skill 1, but now I think that's actually her skill 2. I know Calm to Us, like I see a lot of YouTubers who are like trying really hard to say the names of the skills, so I'm assuming Calm to Us has like made a point of saying like, let's use the names of the skills. But I sure wish for the balance patch they would just say skill 1, skill 2, skill 3 anyway, because I know what most skills do, but I don't know their names. Okay, Justice Strike is skill 1. I thought so, because the reason I thought so is because that was already the one that couldn't glance. Yeah, so that's fine. We don't need the skill 2 to crit or do damage. We just need that skill 1 to crit. That's fine. You can now build Josephine without crit rate, I think. And if you build the Josephine without crit rate, that means you can put her on like max resistance or 50k HP or all sorts of really interesting builds. That's actually a really, really big buff for Josephine. I like that one. I like that one. Sorry, guys. All right, I was trying to make it through this, but I'm like, my throat is completely parched. I hadn't planned to stream today, right? So give me 30 seconds, guys. I just got to go grab a bottle of water, and then we will resume. I'll be right back, guys. Let me just go grab a bottle of water. Okay, that is so much better, man. I was really struggling there. I was really struggling to say words and not just cough. Now I haven't gotten to that point yet, but I'm definitely not excited for any kind of Chiwu buff. But that just, I mean, you guys know me. I'm not excited. I was excited to see Oliver go away because I'm really tired of the turn 1 is the only turn that matters meta. Because in the Oliver meta, there like is no turn 2, period. And I'm just tired of there being no turn 2 existing. So getting rid of Oliver and then them just replacing him with Chiwu, whatever that buff may be, is not going to excite me. I can guarantee you that. Unless you have Ragdoll. I guess if you have Ragdoll, you could play turn 2 in this meta. Nobody else can. Alright, so we are at Xingze. Alright, so under Xingze, okay, we're actually at Josephine, so I like the Josephine buff. Ophelia gets a buff. Grants immunity on all allies for 1 turn. That's an interesting one. I mean, it's like a toe in the water type of thing. I feel like Ophelia was further away than just an AoE immunity, but I don't blame them for not trying to like overdo it all at once. I think that's all right. Yeah, Laura, balance patch came out. We had friends over. I had a few drinks, but I wasn't like so far, I was fine to where I could stream, and right as our friends left, they posted the balance patch, and I was like, what the hell? Like, let's just do the BP on stream. That's it. We're just doing BP and nothing else for stream. 18 seg. Not sure what you meant by that, David. Perk. So, by the way, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. Man, I don't remember what the ringtone is, to be honest. I remember when we were on vacation, I had the same notification tone as someone else, and my buddy was like, man, it's driving me crazy that you both have the same notification tone, so just find something else. So I just kind of found something else. And then I'm like, I probably want to change it again, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. All right, so Fire, Wind, and Dark Hell Ladies all gain 15% attack bar now. Is that enough to make Kraka good? That's a full cycle. That's a full cycle. If you put Kraka on Violent, she could Diana you, almost. Because she could actually take 4 turns in a row. So if you think about on a 4-monster AoE, that's 30% attack bar. It's 120% attack bar. I mean, Ethna is going to be crazy strong. We all know that, because Ethna was better than Kraka before. Ethna got the same buff. Ethna is still better than Kraka. Ethna is even stronger than she used to be. Ethna is insane. They keep buffing Rocky, but there's no point, because Rocky just doesn't really counter anything in the current meta. So it doesn't do anything for Rocky. It's not even that Rocky's bad. It's just that the meta needs to shift before Rocky's going to be good. Like, Rocky just doesn't make sense in the game as it is. But Rocky will be good whenever, like, the meta shifts again. Could be good, depending on what the meta shifts to. Ethna, though, Ethna's really strong. I don't know, that might be enough to make Kraka good, guys. I mean, not great. She's not going to be like SS tier or anything. But she might be usable now. That 120% cycle, that's I think of it as overcycle. I don't know if there's a proper term or whatever, but whenever a monster can cycle to the point where they take an immediate next turn, like Wind Robo, I think of that as overcycling, right? So Kraka can now overcycle. S2 into S1 is irrelevant. Like, we know her S1 is garbage, right? But S2 into S1 means that she's got S2 back up again almost every turn. So even though the strip is not guaranteed, a Despair Kraka could basically S2 every single turn. That's a 40% chance times 2 to strip into Despair stuns. That's pretty legit. And she has to be targeted. I don't know. Kraka might be usable now. All right. Veligul and I forget Fermion. Veligul and Fermion. They lose their dot, and in exchange they get a 2-turn defense break. That dot, believe it or not, is actually a legitimate loss, because that dot deals with certain monsters like Ongiuki, or gives you the ability to kill some things through certain passives like Wadam and Triana. But the 2-turn defense break is nice. If I remember correctly, it's not 100% activation rate, but 2-turn defense break is nice. I think this is a bigger deal for Fermion than for Veligul. Maybe I'm wrong, but just because of the way that Veligul is actually used, because he's typically used in like a Fang Vela defense buffer type comp, right? You already have another defense breaker on most of the teams where Veligul is commonly used. So the 2-turn defense break doesn't really do much for him. It does a little bit. But the dot was actually probably more useful to him than that second turn of defense break, just to be honest. So, although I think this was intended as a buff, I kind of feel like it's a teeny tiny nerf to Veligul. On the other hand, Fermion is running very different types of comps, and and obviously, when a monster gets buffed like this, in theory, it should mean that you could run them in new comps. Like, you wouldn't have to link Veligul to Fang, except Veligul and Fang together just make so much freaking sense This buff doesn't mean, like, just because Velojoule might make a little bit more sense with other monsters, he's not going to be better with them than he is with Fang when you have 2 defense scaling, high damage dealing units, one that needs immunity, one that provides sustain. Like, they're just perfectly synergized. So this little tiny tweak to Velojoule is not going to start all of a sudden make people go like, oh, I got to start using my Velojoule with Wind Hollyberry, but not with Fang or something like that. It just doesn't make enough sense. I mean, I guess in theory you could break your comps apart and go like Fang, Amelia, Bulldozer, and then run like a Wind Holly with Velojoule and something else. But yeah, it's kind of iffy for me. I don't think this is like, I don't think it's a big enough deal to make you want to start breaking your teams apart and making new comps. So I think it probably plays as a net nerf to Velojoule, even if that wasn't the intent, but it's a tiny one. It's not a big deal. Really not a big deal. And then for Fermion, it's actually a nice one because Fermion's played in completely different types of comps, and that 2-turn defense break will be really legit for Fermion. So it is a nice buff for Fermion. Perk with the super chat says, I want to be activated 100% of the time. Perk, I don't want to know what you mean by activated, bro, but I think we all probably feel the same way. Not about you personally, just about ourselves, you know. Perk, thank you very much for the super chat, bro. I appreciate it, man. Steven, I no longer run Fangvela Tyrannus. These days I usually run Fangvela Aaliyah, Fangvela Talc, Fangvela Nana, Fangvela Wind Holly, depending on what I'm countering. Alright, Wind and Light, Desert Queen. So this is Isis and Hathor. This must be the skill 2. I haven't read it yet, but it must be the skill 2. Targets without beneficial effects are put to sleep for 2 turns. Alright. Nice for Isis. I don't think Hathor is coming back into the meta just yet because there's too many things that counter her right now. But it's nice for Isis, who's already an incredibly underrated monster. Alright, Fire Dark Sea Emperor, Spear of Devastation, removes 2 beneficial effects on the enemy. This prevents shield sets from blocking the strip. It's probably something that they should have simply because it makes sense, but I don't think it's a particularly major buff to them. Maybe in terms of you being able to play Okeanos turn 2, so it maybe makes Okeanos a little bit more viable in turn 2 comps, which he kind of needed to be because Sekhmet took over the Okeanos Swift role. It's not a bad one. I don't know if it's super impactful. But it's more than he had before, and it's a monster that needed a little bit more, so I'm fine with that one. Alright, Chiwu, Sleeve Attack. Damage in proportion to attack power and attack speed, so Chiwu just gets a buff on the S3 damage. Pretty unnecessary, like, really unnecessary. It just brings him closer to Wunsa with it makes him more like Wunsa with a low base speed. Obviously, Wunsa does... I should say it brings him closer to Wunsa's damage. So Wunsa does a percentage of his own HP. Chiwu is now going to do, you know, attack and speed scaling damage. Chiwu also gets massive turn cycling, whereas Wunsa has a qualified attack bar boost. Chiwu was probably already slightly better than Wunsa in most cases. Triton is certainly better than Wunsa in most cases anyway. I usually actually tell people to use Triton over Wunsa. I don't think this was necessary, but I don't think it's a big deal either. I think it probably means Chiwu gets played a little bit more, but then with more also getting buffed, I think we were already going to see Chiwu more often either way, because I think Chiwu had already been pushed a little bit into the meta by nature of Oliver's nerf and Moore's buff. So we were going to see more Chiwu either way, and this just makes him a little bit stronger. I think it's fine. Let's see. Water Demon, Repeated Nightmare. Shield amount increased by 71%. So it used to be, I want to say, a 4,800 HP shield. It's now about 8,000 HP. That's actually sort of impactful, maybe, but not really. And here's why I say not really. By the time the Water Demon gets killed, from anybody that knows how to play, like, for the most part, we're just talking RTA here now. By the time Belial is actually going to be killed in RTA, there's already so much damage scaling that's occurred that even the weakest hitting units, with the exception of maybe like a Bulwark or a Riley, are going to be able to break that shield anyway. Where this could be impactful, to be honest, is if you wound up with like just, let's say, a couple of supports like a Bulwark and a Riley, you might actually struggle to break that shield and get that 1 HP. So I don't see this making him used more often, because I don't think it changes the strategy. Like, you can't strategize to have Belial come back against 2 supports, but it'll make him win a slight bit more often. 1 to 2%, maybe 1%, something like that. It's not a bad buff for a monster that needed it. It's not a bad buff at all. Okay, Hypnomias. Attack speed increased by 30% while sleeping. That's all of them. That's interesting. I don't think that the Hypnomeows fit right now. I don't think they fit the meta, and I don't think this makes them fit the meta. But I think they could be really interesting with some cycling type stuff. Like, I could see some defenses actually being run with like the Dark Hypnomeow plus maybe Lume, and then like a Hyena's Lume Dark Hypnomeow, for example. You've got Pushback Absorb, you've got Speed Lead, you've got Slow. If you could set it up so that the Dark could actually cycle through and take consecutive turns even without the Violent proc, then he gets the Ignore defense. That's a very interesting one. I think that one's going to bear a lot of testing for Siege purposes and possibly Special League. Certainly they're not going to make it into anything more than like the occasional niche pick in... They won't make it anywhere more than like the occasional niche pick in RTA. Like, you still have like the Hypnomeow Josephine thing that you can do. And depending on if it gives you a speed buff or if it's a hidden speed, it could actually synergize with Shizuka maybe for RTA. But mostly I see that as a Siege thing. That might be enough to make the Hypnomeows usable on 4-star Siege defense, though. That one's really, really interesting. Alright, Water Assassin. Absorbs the attack. Oh, so this is Stella. Stella used to take away 70% attack bar. Now she absorbs 105 if she doesn't miss any accuracy resistance checks. I could see Stella working her way back into some specific counters now, especially using stuff like a Taeon for a guaranteed attack on a high damage Stella, because she also cycles. Remember, she also gains an instant turn. She doesn't cycle turns. She cycles cooldown, so if she kills with her skill 3, she can use her skill 3 again. So imagine you did something like a Taeon into a Stella, so she gets the attack buff. She goes 7 hits into, like, pretend there's a Garo on defense for some unknown reason. So she runs, 7 hits into the Garo. She kills the Garo, but she also absorbs 100% attack bar, and she's getting another turn right away with her skill 3 again. I could see her working in some sorts of, again, Siege purposes. Maybe Special League. She could actually be interesting in Special League too. I think that's a really strong buff. For a monster that used to be great, and then just like kind of completely disappeared, got ignored for a few years, that's a really strong buff. I really like that. Really like that one for her. Alright, Fire Assassin. Effect activates if enemies recover HP 5 times, or passive effect inflicts damage. Oh, the passive effect. Okay, yeah. So when the enemies heal 5 times, she ignores defense. That actually could make her usable as well. I mean, mostly right now the meta does tend to favor longer fights. I mean, if you watch Siege Tourney, there were a lot of defenses that had no sustain whatsoever. Siege Tourney tended to be a little bit more YOLO this year, or this season than in past seasons. But there's still a lot of defenses that involve longer fights with healing, and I think, again, this is one where I think she's going to need some testing. Like, I can't say for sure she's going to be usable or useful or anything, but it's a reasonable buff. It is a reasonable buff that gives her a real chance to be useful. Okay, and then the Wind Assassin, now instead of attacking a random ally, random enemy, she attacks the enemy with the lowest HP. That's not Tanya, that's her name. That's not going to change anything for Tanya, because typically you would set up for Tanya just to to try and get 2 kills anyway. But the types of comps you run Tanya in, they're just not really. They don't fit the game at the moment. So I mean, she might get used in some niche counters, but I don't think this changes much for her. Light Assassin. If the target dies, decreases the attack bar of all remaining enemies by 100%. So this is one of the only 3 or 4 LD4s I don't have. I actually don't know her kit. Hard for me to have an opinion on her. Sounds like a really interesting ability, but it's going to be a siege-only thing that's going to rely very heavily on a single accuracy resistance check. And as a general rule of thumb, I don't like anything that revolves around a single accuracy resistance check. When it's all or nothing, even if they've got max accuracy, they fail 15% of the time. So I don't think I like this as, you know, I don't think this makes her usable for the types of monsters that I like to use at least. Dark Assassin. While Endless Death is on cooldown, the damage you deal is increased by 50%. Again, this is like a YOLO damage dealer. There are some situations, though. I can actually see some comps where that might be intriguing. For the Dark Assassin, I feel like this is probably a little bit more intriguing than the buffs to Tanya or Natalie were. Alright, Water Heart Magician. Shield amount proportionate to damage is max HP of the caster. Creates a shield that's equivalent to 30% of the damage. Well, it doesn't matter. Creates a shield that's equivalent to 30% of your max HP on all allies. That's interesting, because she's got a little bit of CC as well. And also, if you think about like the Hypnomias, so she could actually shield the Hypnomias that do HP scaling damage, and then you can do like an AoE sleep, and the Hypnomias get to overcycle, or not really overcycle, but they get to turn cycle with their speed buff. I could see some interesting possibilities there with like her plus the Hypnomias. Obviously, there's other monsters, just first thing that comes to mind. And she got a second buff here too. So puts all enemies to sleep with a 60% chance and inflicts 2 continuous damage effects for 2 turns. That's actually really strong. Although, well, continuous damage wakes you up from sleep, but it's only a 1-turn sleep, so it doesn't matter, because it wakes you up after you've lost the first turn. It just would block you from taking a second turn of sleep. So that doesn't really matter. Yeah, it's actually pretty strong. I'm not going to say like the era of whatever her name is. I can't even remember her name right now. I'm not going to say the era of the Water Heart Magician is here, but this is like strong enough that she deserves some real serious consideration and testing. I think she actually might be finally a usable monster. Celia, I have long maintained as one of the most underrated LD5s. This is a pretty decent buff for Celia as well. It's not crazy. For Celia owners, they're going to say it's not nearly enough. But it's something, guys. It is something, and I mean, it's more consistent sleep, and that's a lot of continuous damage for monsters that are sleeping. I think that's a big step forward for Celia. For a monster that was already, I felt like, kind of underrated. Alright, so Grim Reaper's Secondary Awakening. If you attack an enemy who already has continuous damage, your attacks won't land as a glancing hit. So the only problem with this is that in a okay, so this is for the Swift Melia variant. So I have always been kind of anti-Swift Melia for the Giants Dot team, because I feel like you're wasting a massive Swift set to lap the boss on the Melia. But now, if you run the Swift Melia, you're guaranteed the 2 turns with the Melia, but you're also guaranteed the Sath won't glance, which means you have a much higher chance to land the dot. This is mainly a buff, obviously, for people starting off earlier in the game with their dot team. But this is a really good buff, but it does mean that the Swift Melia version is now the correct one to build. Yeah, there's no way around it. Yeah, the Swift Melia version is the one to build. So I don't know the speeds offhand. I think the Melia has to be something like 290, and that may be with a max speed tower. So a lot of people won't be this is the kind of weird thing. So the people who actually need this buff are the people who are early enough game that they're basically building their first dot team, or they're like early middle game and their dot team's just like barely holding on. those are the ones who will benefit the most from this buff, but those are the people who really can't spare a 290 set to put on a Melia. And you kind of need the Melia to go first in order to get this benefit from the Sath. So probably what it does mean is something like the Veramos or probably like, I mean, the Lucian variant's still always going to be the fastest variant of the dot team. But I think the variant that uses Veramos, because Veramos can dot with skill 1, would be slightly more reliable, but Veramos is probably still going to use skill 2 more than skill 1, or a portion of the time. I wonder if you could just run triple Melia. I wonder if anybody's ever just tested triple Melia. So, Pure Luck, that's what I was saying. In terms of consistency, for this to improve consistency, the Melia has to act before the Sath. But because the Melias dot more when the enemy already has a dot on it, if the Melia acts before the Sath, you wind up with 4 dots instead of 5. So you can't go Melia, Sath, Melia and consistently kill the boss unless you do a Swift Melia that laps. So, in order to create more consistency, your Swift Melia, it would go Swift Melia, Sath, second Melia, and then your Swift Melia lapping in back again and lapping your Tattoo. The Tattoo to get in front of the boss has to be at 169 combat speed, which I forget the exact tick number in that range. But to get to actually lap that Tattoo, you have to keep the Tattoo under the 179 tick and get the Melia onto probably 286 tick. Probably 286 tick, but maybe a little bit higher than 286. So it's a big Swift set to give to the Melia, which new players are going to struggle to get. But I don't know. I think there's other ways around it. I think something like using Veramos, because the Veramos will give a dot on skill 1, and they gave Veramos some really big buffs in this patch. So maybe maybe for new players, the correct team now is going to be the Veramos, Melia, Sath, Melia, Tattoo. So maybe that's the correct thing, is like to run the Veramos first. And to run the Veramos over the Lucian for new players. And then move to the Lucian for a faster team. By the way, guys, for those of you who don't know, Lucian does not have to one-shot to improve your time. Compared to Veramos or Fran, Lucian is still about 20-25 seconds faster on average, even if he does not one-shot. Because what he actually does is enough fluff damage to kill the waves. Because like, you're not going to land 5 dots on every monster on every wave. So then when Tattoo does her thing, there's usually monsters left over. But if your Lucian just does like baby 5k cards, that's still enough to clear the waves. And it cuts about 20-25 seconds off the average run. But I think as a first team running the Veramos on the first team, then this buff would improve the consistency there a little bit. Let's see here. What else do we have? Alright. Fire Phantom Thief. Deals 100% more damage if the enemy's HP is twice your HP or higher. Oh. Interesting. So, Fire Phantom Thief is Gene. Aztec Gaming, who's actually on stream right now, he did a video a long time back. I don't know if he's still #1, but he was the first person, I think, to actually craft a rank first, like a rank 1 dimensional hold team, and he did that using Gene. Because Gene does crazy damage. And shortly after that, A-Star got buffed. And A-Star got basically the same thing, where she gets double her damage with certain qualifying conditions. Gene, though, is a single target hitter, so his multiplier is higher. So Gene is being changed from the enemy needing to be twice your HP or higher to the enemy just needing to have higher than your HP, which means basically you just put him on a fat Lucian set and he always gets double damage. And I want to say he's got like an 820% multiplier, something like that, like really high, really, really high multiplier. I don't think this makes him better than, for example, Hanra. Like, Hanra has already just got straight ignore defense. And I know he's an LD, but he's an LD 3-star that anybody can access, and it's easier to skill up. I think it's really interesting, but I don't see any reason why you would use him over a lot of the monsters that just ignore defense, because it doesn't matter if you do 50k or, like, it doesn't matter if you do 500k or 50k, like, dead is dead, right? So I don't actually see why you would use him over a lot of alternative options, but it is interesting. It is interesting. All right, Dark Phantom Thief. When your attack lands as a critical hit, your critical damage increases by 100%. That's actually pretty legit for Special League, because Mali Guillaume together make for a pretty strong Special League team already. And he does really big damage. He also got like a 2 or 3 turn cooldown on the skill 2, which has a stun. So I think the Guillaume Mali meta could be here for a Special League. What will be better for Volantis Nephthys now, Tetra or Vero? Tetra still. Tetra is just toxic. Well, Tetra is better for Volantis. Vero is better for Nephthys, actually. I take it back. So Tetra is better for Volantis because those teams do relatively low damage, and you can just afford to like wait for Tetra to get a turn. Against the Nephthys, those are really high damage teams. Tetra is not going to do enough to keep you alive, so you kind of need a Nemesis Vero. And then the nice thing about the Nemesis Vero there is the fact that he cycles and gives you some stun opportunities, where the Tetra doesn't give you stun opportunities. So against the Volantis, the Tetra will just mean that they can't actually kill anything. Like, you can just sit there forever and they'll never get a kill. Against the Nephthys, they have that kill capability, so you have to cycle ahead a little bit and try and get some stun and do some disruption. So I think the Tetra is the better counter to Volantis, and Nemesis Vero is the better counter to Nephthys. All right, let's see. Fireheart, so Raccoon, HP recovery increases to 15%. This is nice because Raccoon is actually still a useful monster. A lot of people forgot about him or gave up on him because he is just a 3-star. If they ever do, well, they can never do 2A Hargs because of the Wind one Raviti. So I guess there'll never be a 2A Raccoon, but yeah, there's a nice little buff for Raccoon. I think this is solid. I would have liked to have seen like an improvement to his base stats instead, but I don't think they can really do that because I think it's all formulaic, unless they did it through like an awakening. Okay, Dark Harg, Owl's Hoot, max cooldown increased by 1 turn, but he now gains a turn instantly after using the skill. I don't know what that skill does. I am actually curious enough that we're gonna go look it up though. Let's go see if that actually does anything to make him useful or not. I really doubt it. I honestly really doubt it, but I'm curious enough to look it up. So it's on this one. Increases the attack speed of all allies. 6 turn cooldown. Are you kidding me? It's a 3-turn speed buff on there. It's gonna go to 7 turn with an instant, attacks the enemy and decrease. Yeah, this is. Why did you bother, bro? Why did you bother? Somebody actually spent time coding that. Like, somebody actually spent time coding that change in. Like, seriously. Just why? Why? Just why? You couldn't have found better things to do with your coding time? Like, why? Alright. That's my whys. Alright, a few awakening changes. Tanya. Oh, now increases critical rate by 15%. Totally unnecessary. Tanya, it was already easy to make her hit for like 70, 80k without like crazy OP runes, just like solid mid-game rage set. She already hit for 70, 80k. She already has a crit rate buff, if I remember correctly, or self-attack buff, one of those. She didn't need this. On the other hand, to be fair, she didn't need resistance either. It does make more sense. Probably would have been better to give her an awakening into speed. If they're trying to really make her usable, probably would have been better to give her an awakening into speed. But the critical rate does make sense for her, and maybe this makes her a little bit more usable and accessible for earlier game players. And to be fair, some of these changes were targeted, as they should be, towards earlier game players and towards making the game easier for earlier game players. So I think my initial reaction to that was probably wrong. I think this is a good change. I think this is a good change because maybe Tanya can be used in like like when you're first getting into Guild Wars, she could still be a useful monster, especially when nobody has will runes. Before people start putting will runes on their defenses, she can still be a good monster. So I think that makes sense. And then Ravidi changes to increase his attack speed. This also makes more sense for him. Ravidi, I feel like he's maybe a sneakily underrated monster. The fact that he takes up a support role without actually healing makes him really tough. I don't know that this actually does enough to change that. I think he needs to have some sort of sustain mechanic. But it's a step in the right direction. It's a step in the right direction. All right, we're not going to read through skill errors. We're not going to read through skill descriptions. So I think that's it. There's some adjustments to skill errors and skill descriptions, which you guys can view. But that's it. So like I said, quick. Actually, it wasn't that quick. How long was this? Yeah, it was almost an hour. Long, slow review of the balance patch. We're going to do one RTA wing. We'll wrap up with one and only one RTA wing. We will draft Gianna in RTA. Because we're on the alt. The 30-day-old alt, by the way, guys. 30-day-old alt is coming along pretty well. Farming heavily on it now. I've got my Trikaru set up. I've got all my teams set up. I have only 6 monsters ruined for RTA. We do only have 6 monsters ruined, so if they steal my Gianna, we're kind of in trouble. But as long as they don't steal my Gianna, we should be good. So we're going to wrap up the stream on this wing, and then pretty much as always, guys, I appreciate you watching. Hope you enjoy this last RTA match. In the comments, guys, post your thoughts on, and I know I didn't interact with chat as much today as I normally do, but post your thoughts on the... post your thoughts on the balance patch. What do you like? What do you not like? On the whole, I feel like there's some really interesting changes here. I think this was a pretty solid overall patch. The Nana nerf pisses me off. I'm not going to lie. The Nana nerf is just, so unnecessary. So unnecessary. Like, it's just those dumb things like that. Just really, yeah. But other than the Nana nerf, I thought that for the most part, this was a pretty solid balance patch, man. I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff in there to consider for Siege. I think there is a lot of really interesting stuff in there, like the Oliver nerf takes Oliver completely out of the game. Not completely, but mostly. I think Oliver is mostly going to be gone from the meta. They over-nerfed him, in my opinion, but I'm not going to complain about that because we're all tired of him, so that's fine. The Gurkha nerf was actually spot on. I think they nailed the Gurkha nerf. I think Gurkha is still a triple S tier monster. I think he's still a 52+% win rate monster, but I don't think he's broken anymore. I think he's now a triple S tier LD5 and properly balanced. And yeah, there you go, guys. Kraka is going to be interesting. Since Kraka's my only LD5 that was affected by this patch, Kraka will be interesting. I almost feel like she might be useful. Not in Siege. Still too risky for Siege. But she's going to be worth trying for RTA. So, alright guys, on that note, have a great night everybody. Thanks for hanging out with me on this late stream, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.